So good evening, everybody. Tonight is our first Wednesday night session for organizational behavior in spring 1. The first thing I just want to touch on is the syllabus. So, just like every other syllabus, so I guess I have to share my screen. Let me do that first. And just make sure this is sharing. Robert, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my Word document? Perfect, thank you. All right, so on the syllabus, just like every other syllabus, you have all the common information that you might need to contact me or anything about the course. Course objectives. So whenever we build courses, we obviously scaffold right to these objectives. So you will see these very clearly in the work that you're going to do through this course. If you're looking for like, hey, one-stop shopping overview of what this course is and what we're going to do, this is right here in the content outline. So this is pretty much, if you look at each weekly folder in uLearn, you're going to see the combinations of these here. This is what we're looking at. But really what I want to draw your attention to, the required reading materials. This is the Bowman and Deal text. It's their latest 2021. If for some reason you have a previous edition, they are not the type of authors that change something on page 6 and call it a new edition. They really overhaul their editions. So you really need to have the 2021, the 7th edition. So Deal actually passed away in June, and Bowman is writing the next version of this. So the 8th one will hopefully come out. I was able to have a conversation with him over the summer. Robbins and Judge, that is an optional text. I find that students really like this. I don't care whether you get it or not. I don't give you work that's required in it, but it is very good for technical definitions. And if you haven't had OB in a while or just don't remember some of it, it's a good technical book where it's more like textbooky, but it's the kind of a fast version of the textbook, where Bowman and Deal is more of a book rather than a textbook. All right, our evaluative criteria. So this is what you're going to be doing during the next 7 weeks and how they will be weighted within the gradebook. I know that some professors will tell you something different. I did put this note in my course. I stick to the syllabus because uLearn is very tedious, and there are times that I've set the date right over here, but then in Turnitin, it still has a different date, and I try to make sure that stuff is all set, but once in a while something sneaks in. So the syllabus for me is the holy grail. This shows us exactly where we're going. If you're ever unsure, look at the syllabus. If I ever have to make a change, I will certainly let you know, but that doesn't usually happen. So everything is always listed here. This is where we are in week 1. I'm going to flip over to the uLearn site in just a minute, but this is also listed, obviously, section by section, and I try to do my syllabi in order so that if you're looking at uLearn, everything looks the same. It's a heavy reading week. I know that. I think you will find it easy to read. It's not, like I said, like a typical textbook where you have to read the same page 8 times to figure out what it actually said. This is a little bit more of just a regular reading style. I will give you the disclaimer on the book. I've put it in uLearn, but this is a terrific book. Some of you may have had this in grad school or in other places, different versions. We use it a little differently here in this course. But the one big aspect of this book that I really do not appreciate, and this is what I had the conversation with Lee over the summer, they have gone so political. This book has an extremely strong political overtone. It's not even an undertone. It is just out there. I hate that. He's promised me that that's going to be tailored back in this next version. We'll see. I don't know. But if you can, try to look beyond their political agenda here and just read it for the content and the vignettes and the stories, because the content, I think this is one of the best books I've ever read and had in a course. So if you can kind of get past the political stuff, the rest of it is really good. So that's the book disclaimer. All right, let's flip over to ULearn so that we can kind of see what we are looking at this week. So there's the textbook disclaimer there, and it appears in other places. Again, the readings are all listed here, and I do give you the readings if you have the optional book. So it's not just like, hey, it's out there if you want to read it. I do give you the corresponding chapters for each week, but again, totally optional. A list of suggested journals is you can click here or throughout the term if you're trying to remember where is that. Over here on the left sidebar, I have an article resources tab, and that will bring you to the live guide. Okay, so, well, it does most days. Today you can see it right here, but that link should be working for you. I'm having an internet page issue. I don't know why some pages are not opening right now. So anyway, you can see these are journals. You can certainly use other journals, but this is just in case people are a little bit lost or trying to figure out what direction to go in. I also have some articles listed here by category, but I will tell you, these lists were made a long time ago, and you can see that some of the work is seminal, but a lot of the work, the list on here, I had one of the librarians do this for me years ago, and it's just very dated. So some of these articles are still relevant and okay to use, but typically where you'll want to stay is in the journals looking for more recent articles. All right, so that was all in that reading section. There are some videos to watch in each week. So this week you have kind of a 99-second intro to what this is. This is a Dunker candle experiment. This one you click to the side and you'll go through that. This is just a resource. This is not live in yours yet. This is what we're doing tonight. So these are not so micro lectures because they're kind of long. So each week, as part of the Wednesday night session, I will record a portion or all, depending on what we're doing. And then I will post that information the next morning and send an announcement to let you know it's there with the resources from the session. You have your discussion this week and your first assignment. So a little bit about this assignment. It is very different than any of the other assignments you will do in this course. The reason for this is it's a case study that you're going to write, kind of a mini case study. And while you do have to adhere to APA and follow academic writing, it is a little bit more freestyle writing, if you will, where it gives me an opportunity to see your natural tendencies, kind of like we did in orientation where you did a writing sample, but this is just now an assignment, a little more structure. So I can see kind of the direction you go in and give you feedback there. That helps set us up for the remaining assignments. I'm not going to get too far into the remaining assignments tonight, but what I will tell you is the technical focus of this course is literature reviews. So we are going to really hone your literature review writing skills. You were introduced to them and did a little bit of work with them in the first course, more work in the second course, and now we are going to dive into journal articles and instead of dissertation reviews, and we're going to really look at the whole process of literature reviews. That's kind of my course overview. Before I jump into some content tonight, does anybody on the session tonight have any thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, so let's jump right into this. And I like to give a little bit of background on the content for this course because, again, some people are very well versed and familiar with OB. Some people are like, what is this? And when you read some of the wording, it sounds like some other courses. So we're going to talk about that. So I'm not going to read the definitions that I have on the slide word for word here, but I do want to just call your attention to a couple of things. And in this first definition, you'll see these three words: individuals, groups, and structure. And you will see these words over and over again in many of your courses in this program, because these three levels are pretty much what makes up OD. So you have OD, and OB, but you'll see these three levels. Leadership. The reason I'm bringing leadership into this is because you will see the wording looks the same. And we're going to talk about this on a later slide. But just to be clear, I have a definition there of what leadership is. And these are all taken from your texts, just so that we're kind of all staying on the same page of what things look like in this course. And then org development. So a collection of plan change interventions versus just the OB piece, which is the culture, the kind of overarching climate, culture, behavior within the organization versus interventions and plan change. We will revisit org development in other courses that you have, but with me, you'll see this next fall, I believe, for your group in Management 7120. So moving on. These are the models, the kind of the main basic models of organizational behavior. This is where I said we talk about that leadership piece, because if you look at these, you know, what is the model? What is the, you know, kind of what's happening in that model? And then, you know, with all the components of it. And if you look at this, all of these words, you could just put leadership right after them. And I'm sure you've all seen them where it just says, you know, this is the custodial leadership model. Right? The reason for that is because the leaders are running and sort of the ringleaders, if you will, of organizational behavior. So there's a lot of interchangeability here, but you will kind of, you'll see these throughout this course and in the world of OB as the main models of OB. Let's move on here. So kind of pulling in Bowman and Deal, they talk a lot about the frames, right? And trying to reframe and sort of what lens are you looking through? So they provide this example in the book. What is the sum of 5 plus 5? Well, that's fine, and you can get an answer, but typically you're only going to have one answer to that question. Versus if you ask what two numbers add up to 10, now that's going to give you a whole range of new potential responses. So it's just about how you're framing problems, questions, approaches, and how you're looking at things, viewing things within your organization. So this is a quote. Dr. Hughes loves this quote, so I stole it from him, although he steals it from Albert Einstein. But, you know, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. So really just trying to frame the problem, understand it, get your mind around it, and maybe look at it from different angles. As you progress over the next few years towards your dissertation work, you're going to be looking to frame a problem, but between now and then, you're going to be doing a lot of problem solving. So again, this is kind of where those different frames come into play. All right, so which frame do you choose? There are, these are the 4 frames presented in the Bowman and Deal text. The first is factory, then family, jungle, and then carnival or temple. But I found this cool picture of a carnival, so I went with that image. But it's, again, just talking about what is your frame, and frames will change as your experiences, your situations change. And even though right now you might think, gee, I'm more comfortable in this frame over here, these other ones not as comfortable for me. Again, something could change, but wherever you are at the moment, obviously it's a good idea to be able to understand the perceptions of those frames as well. In this course, we'll also talk about one of my favorite sort of big philosophical topics, perception versus reality. And a lot of that comes into play with these frames. This is right from the textbook. The image, the figure is so grainy, I was not able to get it clear, but it is in your textbook on page 54. And I'm going to post these slides tomorrow, and I do have the page numbers in the notes section, but this is on page 54 in Bowman and Deal. So this is a figure that shows the different structures of tech organizations. So you have Amazon here, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and Oracle. And you can see that even though they have a lot of similarities across their companies, their structures are extremely different. Amazon and Oracle are probably the most similar, but Oracle then has sort of these outspurts here. Microsoft, similar within little hubs, but then, you know, Google, Facebook, and Apple, very, very different. So all about, again, through that frame, through your lens, what does the structure of your company look like? What should it look like? What could it look like? All of those questions. They give you the example of McDonald's versus Harvard. So McDonald's, obviously, very large organization. As of 2023, they had 41,000 McDonald's units globally, and they are very centralized. So one McDonald's looks exactly like the other McDonald's. When it's time to change the menu, they all change. Now, there might be regional exceptions, et cetera. But for the most part, the decisions for McDonald's, all 41,000 of them are centralized. Harvard, much smaller in comparison to McDonald's, but the decisions are very decentralized. Each college works on its own budget. They work on their own, strategic plan. It's a very different environment, even though it's much smaller, a lot of decentralization versus this large organization that has a lot of centralization. The text also talks to you about the kind of the comparison, the analogy of sports teams, and what structure is right for your organization. The example talks about how in baseball, you're 9 individuals on a field, and while you all have to play the game together, you're all doing something very individual at any given time, versus football, where everybody has to play together at the same time and follow the same plan. You're not off on your own doing something over here on this base. You are all together on the field. The plan in football, all the plays are predetermined. The strategy is there. They know how they're going to play this other team, and they go out and they go through that strategic plan. Versus basketball, which has the team all playing together like football, but there's not a predetermined plan as much. They have to be able to adjust very quickly and rapidly because it's a much faster environment, a faster game. So again, looking at that in terms of your organization, which kind of structure might suit your department, your organization, whatever, at any given time, depending on what's happening or the culture in general. Performance equals ability times motivation. And you can see here, you've had many courses, I'm sure, where you talk about motivation. We talk about it a lot in this program because it's one of the backbones of OB, OD, et cetera. We know from a lot of years of research that money is really not the best motivator. Short term doesn't work out well. There's so many other factors, and the generations have brought new motivational factors or importance to certain different factors into the workplace. So bonding, that's not something that was important 50 years ago. Nobody wanted to bond when they came to work. Now that's something that people look for, and maybe not everybody, but it is certainly something that is more present than in previous decades. So bonding, development, doing good work are things right now that people are concerned with. And there's a lot of others as well, but these are just examples. All right. And choosing a frame. So this just talks about how, and I believe this is in the book, I think. If you answer these questions, and then if yes, you're in this kind of frame. If no, you're over here, or the ones that might work the best for your organization. So I'm going to leave it with this as the last slide here. Before I stop the recording, Does anybody on screen have anything that they would like to ask or share while we are on? Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about, I believe it was the second or the third slide. There was a chart with the sort of different frames, and they're listed number 1 at the top down to number 5 on a that exactly. I'm curious if the number there is that representing like a hierarchy within each of those models, or what exactly that I was just having
No,
trouble reading this chart.
okay, yeah, so the numbers are arbitrary,
Oh,
just
okay.
out there that there's 5 of them that are being looked at there. Although, let's see, maybe that is supposed to be. Let me double check on this, and I will post something when I post it in tomorrow. I don't know if this is supposed to be 6 because I'm not, let me double check on what I did here, and then I
Okay.
will. But thank you. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording. If anybody on the session, off the session, whenever you're watching this, if you have any other questions, please reach out.